Welcome to Disrupt Education Alley 2023. We're rolling. How are you?
We're rolling. And by the time this comes out, I will have gone to Florida and jumped out of more planes and come back to live the tale. So we're just bringing that energy into 2023 and we're just disrupting everything from the air, from the ground, all the angles, and sharing stories about it. So we're
Yeah.
excited to have our guest with us today
Yes.
and bring in a new era of the Disrupt Education
Oh,
podcast.
man. So just amplifying people and the work that they're doing around education. Today, we have Olga Payne. Olga, hello. How are you?
Hello, hello, hello. I am wonderful. Thank you all for having me.
Oh, 100%. So I was connected with Olga with and I'll give him a shout out. Derek Purvis, he knows, I love the guy, an amazing business educator. And he passed along an article with you, Olga, in it. And I knew I had to talk to you. I was like, we gotta listen and see what she's doing. A Chicago school teacher, making hundreds per week doing nails as a side hustle.
Yes.
Boom! If there's something we know about side hustles, Allie. So tell us more, Olga. Tell us a little bit about who you are now, and tell us about this side hustle, and we'll dive in.
Okay, so I am an educator. I've been educating, this is year 17. I didn't originally start out in the education field. I tried to run from it, didn't want to do it. But all of my other jobs I had, I was always the trainer, whether it was an official title or unofficial, so you may have come to me and say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" And I said, "Okay, I got you." And so when I decided to return to school, I was thinking I had been doing this in all of my, you know, professional endeavors. So why not? Why not go back to school for education? So I started out teaching high school English. That's where I met Derek. So we were next door neighbors. Started out teaching high school English. And then I went back for my master's in special education. I went back for my master's because I would always have a lot of the kids who had diverse learning needs in my class. Sometimes I had a teacher in there, and a lot of times I didn't. So I didn't really know how to adequately service them. So I originally just went back. I'm like, as long as I'm here, let me go back so I can service them correctly to make sure, their needs are being met, their academic needs are being met. So that's how that happened. When it comes to nails, I graduated high school, went away to college, came home because I owed the school some money. So I said, well, I'll take this nail class. It was only like a couple of hours, a week that I had to go. I said, great. I'll have the money to pay back, to the school. And then when I go back to school, I can make some money doing nails. Well, didn't really work out like that. So I got my nail license. Well, I didn't get it right away because the nail instructor had some stuff going on with the school where she didn't have a license for the school. So I had to wait. And then I didn't have all the money to pay the school back. So I ended up staying home. And then I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. So all of those things happened. And I was like, great, I'm not going back. Look, I'm not going back. So I eventually, maybe within a year, I was able to get my nail license. And I was like, okay. So in between that time, I still was working a job and doing nails part-time here and there until I was waiting to see what the state was going to say about, being able to take the test. And so once I was able to take it, I'm like, I will never let this license go because I waited so long and just everything that I went through with the instructor and all of that, I was like, it was too much for me to just let it go. So I've always had my nail license. I'll stop doing nails sometimes and then I'll pick it back up. It's one of those things where if I want to do it now, I can. If I don't have to. Sometimes I'll work in a salon and then right now I just take clients that can't leave the house. So if it's a senior or someone who has limited mobility, I'll just take them and go and service them and do nails. And I really enjoy doing that better because I can schedule them when I want to. it's not a big deal. So that's how I've been doing that, and I love it.
I mean, what a testimony of like service. And I really like how you said you taught high school English and then realized a need that you weren't meeting or to your own standard. It's
Right,
probably no one came in and was like, you need to go learn
right.
how to, do better here. And it's interesting how that even ties into your work with your side hustle with nails. Is like
Hmm.
you're trying to help those that want the service, but it's more challenging for them to get it. And that's I think that really speaks to the heart of educators, and especially you as an educator, and just wanting to always kind of give back and serve. It's These are stories that people, the side hustle is more. I'm certain it's more than just like, oh, I'm just doing nails. Like,
Hmm.
it it adds so much richness to your life. And like teachers don't just like teach to like stand up and say a
Right.
bunch of words at kids.
Yeah.
They're not just like there to preach at them, so to
Right.
speak.
And part of it when I do nails, the clients do become like family. Um, I have lost clients, and that's always hard, because and I always think about it like, oh my gosh, like that was the last time I spoke to them, and then maybe a few weeks later, the family called and tell me, they passed away, or so that's the difficult part about that because I'm providing something like, yeah, you can go to the podiatrist and get your toenails trimmed and stuff like that, but they're not going to massage your feet. You know, they're just going to trim them and then send you on your way. So a lot of times it's about that touch, that human touch. Um,
Mm.
and so that's the thing. And so if I can help the family, care for their loved one when it's, close to that time, then I'm there, and a lot of people won't do it. They just won't do it. And so I saw a need and I'm like, you know what? I can do this. It's not a big deal. When I first started doing nails, I would do parties. You could call me up, Allie, and say, hey, can you come over? And, it's a bunch of us getting together. I'm like, I'm there. I'm gonna polish your nails and stuff. But that was one of the things my nail instructor told us she used to do. Have nails will travel. That's what she used to always say. And so she was the one who planted that seed. And she would just do it for people, if they wanted that, you wanted me to come to your house or whatever, get a group, that's fine. But when I realized that a lot of people who just couldn't really leave the house still needed that service, and I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And so people already know, like, are you doing that? Can you do that? And I'm like, well, I'll do it for you. And so that's how it came to be. That's how it
Mm.
came to be.
So as an this is such a great path. I mean, you have a humanistic approach to you, and I think great educators in general do that, and they realize that. But I want to take it back to, with your students, right? Like there's something about it. Like we all three of us here in this podcast, we've had some side hustles while we were teaching, or wherever we're learning and working with people. Do you bring it back to your students, and how do you kind of like, help, maybe share some of the stories of how to differentiate? You got some business in there. You got some,
Hmm.
you're providing, you're problem solving. You're really empathetic. You're helping people.
Hmm.
How do you bring that back into the classroom?
So I always try to give my students like a real life, experience scenario. Um, Now I'm at the elementary level, so I break it down to them, so they can really understand it. When I taught high school, I was at a vocational high school, so I always told them, listen, I got both. I got the trade and a degree. I had the trade before I had the degree. I said, so I'm never telling you like you can't do it. I said, you can do both. And I would tell them, and when I leave here, sometimes I'm going to polish somebody's nails, you know. And so a lot of them saw that and they were like, oh, well, then I can do that too. That's great. Now with my younger students, I also explain to them it's great to, want to have a career doing, whatever it is you think you want to do. I don't want to put anything in your head. So whatever you think you want to do, I said, but I always think about what else can I do to make a difference. And so if you say, well, you know what, I just want to go to work and come home, that's great. But what mark do you want to leave on this world? So when you leave here, what do you want people to remember you by? What is it that you want people to know where, it's like, hey, they did this and I never forgot it, And so those are things that I always, stress to them. And then I tell them, you can learn something from everybody, young and old. You can learn something from everyone. And so I share with them, how sometimes if I go to a client's house and they share something with me and they tell me something, worth repeating, I'll share those things with them. Just so they can understand, like, and this person, could be my grandmother, but I learned from them, So those are things I just want them to be a better human.
It's interesting because you said that, like, you didn't originally choose the educational path and you ran from it and everything
Yep.
like that. So, was it, and I don't want to assume that, like, why that was or anything, but was there a moment in time that you remember where you realized, like, your learning wasn't over in the classroom and that you actually needed to kind of return back to it to fulfill a purpose or your calling, or like what you were supposed to do, and or just like a little bit more on your journey from leaving the school and then kind of coming back into it?
I don't know if it was like a moment per se, but I've always enjoyed learning. So a little bit, in addition to having my nail license, I have my cosmetology license as well. So so
All of that.
learning learning is something I enjoy. And watch this, don't laugh at me. I'm currently finishing up my doctorate.
Never laugh at
So
that. Never ever
okay,
laugh at that.
Lifelong learner.
so
Wow.
I don't know if it's one of those things where I felt like, it stopped or anything. I just always like wanted to have knowledge. Always. I always want to have knowledge. Um, Growing up, I was probably one of the nerds in the classroom. So maybe that's where it came from. I'm not really for sure. But I just always, enjoyed reading and learning about things. So I'm not going to trust you to tell me. I'm going to find out on my own.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
I,
I think that's where it's always been for me. Like, you can tell me something, and I may be like, oh, okay, thanks. And then I'm going to go and get my book and look and see, because I'm like, I don't trust you to tell me that this is right or wrong. Like, no. So that's something that I just always, have done. I'm like, no, I don't want you to, not that you don't know, but I got to find it out for myself. So I think that's how it's been for me. I don't think it was just a one time, like, oh, this is over or whatever. I think it's just always been kind of like, okay, you enjoy learning, then go ahead.
I love the fact that you've already, I mean, combined the curiosity and how far can I take this, right? The
Mhm.
curiosity, and that's amazing. Like, and so I kind of want to back up, and we don't get too many guests who have taught across the spectrum of
No.
K through 12.
Okay.
And I gotta ask, right? So there's a difference, right? You've done a vocational high school, some
Hmm.
middle school, if I'm not correct, and then now into elementary school.
Hmm.
Thank you, number one,
Thanks.
because I think instilling it. We all say it earlier, 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 right? And
Hmm.
instilling these amazing stories and moments that you can share, and not only just yours, but your clients, which is awesome.
Hmm.
What's the difference? Like, what do you see as a difference? Because I'm very curious. Allie and I are both secondary teachers. I've never taught in elementary. I've done some, volunteer work and different things like that. But what's the difference?
There's
What do you
really
see?
no difference. They're just
No,
in smaller bodies.
love that.
And that's really it. Like, that was one of the things. So the funny part was when we went out for the pandemic,
Hmm.
and that year when we was online, when it was like, okay, now we kind of figure out we're not going back in, this is what we have to do. My daughter had recently moved back home, and so she would hear me sometimes on the camera talking to the kids, and she'd come upstairs when it was my lunch and say, Olga, these are little kids. I'm like, and I was like, they're kids. And so, she would always say, but Olga, they're little kids. I'm like, yeah, okay. But they just have smaller bodies. And that's it. That's it. That's really it in a nutshell. Like you know, there's really not that big of a difference with them. I push them like I would my older kids because I know they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And because someone has told them like you can't, I'm like, you can, and I know you can. I know you can. You just have to figure it out.
Mm.
So that's one of the things that I'm gonna push them until I can't push them anymore.
Have you seen your own learning kind of grow and develop over time? And how has that influenced, how you kind of, not everybody talks about like, oh, well, they're just kids with smaller bodies, they
Right.
put them in different boxes, right? So is that part of like your own learning discovery, kind of looping back into the work that you're doing, or what kind of comes to mind when you think about that?
Well, I think what really got me was when I was working on my master's, I had an instructor who, I don't know what we were talking about, but he had said something like, yeah, with your ADD, or I don't know if he said I had ADHD. And I said, you know what? And you're probably right. But anywho, so, and I just kept going on and on and on. And then I thought about it. I'm like, I probably did have, ADD or something and just never knew it because I excelled. But I was doing something and then I stopped to do something else. And that's when he was like, with your ADD having stuff. And I said, and you're probably right. And I just, kept it moving. And I thought about that and I said, a lot of people, especially older people, probably had some learning challenges. And, at that time, it was like, you just bad, it wasn't no, maybe they learn differently. No, they just bad. They don't want to do the work. And so when he had said that to me, I thought about it. I said, you know what? He's probably right. I probably do have a little bit, or maybe it depends on where I fall on the spectrum, but I still can learn, and so can my kids. And so, and like I said, I didn't find that out until I was in my master's program. And so, and I never looked at it like that because I did do well in school. But when I thought back to it, I said, and this is probably why, like, I would start a project and then stop it because I like to do crafts, but I have a lot of UFOs around the house, unfinished objects. So, 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 so I'll start on something and then I'll put it down because I'm like, well, that's not going the way I thought it was going to go. And then I'll work on 12 other things and then I'll come back to it and be like, let me finish this now, you know. And I laugh because I'm like, you're not a true crafter unless you got like 100 UFOs sitting over there, or whatever. And so I laughed about it, but it just explained why, I would start something sometimes and then stop, or, maybe I'm studying and then I got to get up and do something, but never knew that. And so that just helped me with my students because I'm like, yeah, they're doing, some of the same things. And so we have to find ways to channel that energy and that learning for them because they can learn. And so in my class, that's where my craftiness comes in because I believe in hands-on. I just got some Legos from someone in the building because I'm like, I can use it when I go for fractions. I can use it, just for different things. But we didn't learn that way.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't learn that way. So I'm always trying to think of ways that I can reach my students so they can learn.
UFOs. Got a lot of those myself.
Beth.
Tell you. Going into those moments, so over a 17 year career, you gotta have some amazing favorite teachable moments.
I do. So when I taught high school, I had this student, and may he be at rest because he has passed on. And he was one of those kids that you hated to see him coming, but you knew, he wasn't bad. He was just annoying on most days. And so I had him probably every year of school. And then if he did not pass, I taught evening school, so he was in there with me for evening school. So I'll never forget, I was teaching a lesson on, I don't know if we were doing, I thought we was doing figurative language. But I don't remember like what exactly, but we were doing that. So I would always get lyrics. Song lyrics are great. So I decided that I was going to do The Message by Grandmaster Flash
Mm-hmm.
and the Furious Five. And I would bring some contemporary stuff, but I just figured that was a great one to start him off with. And so I'll never forget now. He had to sit by my desk because if I let him sit with everybody else, no. So he always had to sit by my desk when he was on my roster. And I think at some point he asked to be in my class. It just, I didn't care. So he would always sit by my desk. And so I was playing the song and I played it first. And then I said, okay, we're going to analyze the lyrics. And so he just got up and started dancing. And I tried not to laugh, but I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get this kid to do anything else. But when I played that song, he was like, play it again, play it again. I was like, okay, okay. But I love that because he was just so like into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a moment where I said, see, I couldn't get him to do anything else any other time. But soon as I put that music on, he was up dancing and beating and jumping and I said, yes. So that was a great moment. Um, and I've had others where I remember I had a student who her mom wouldn't let her attend a selective enrollment high school here in the city. And so she did not want to attend the school and she just wouldn't do the work. But the one day I did get her to write something, it was so beautiful. And I sat there and I wept because I'm like, her mother was doing a disservice to her because she didn't want to be there. She didn't do the work. And really at that time, I was like, she doesn't need to be with these kids. She really didn't, because a lot of them weren't serious about doing work, and stuff like that. But when I read her paper, I was like, oh goodness. And I hate that I never kept it, like a copy of it because it was so beautiful and she just expressed, how she felt. And I just felt so sorry for the child because I was thinking her mother just really, didn't, I don't know if she thought she was helping the child, but I was like, no. And so the girl eventually transferred. Um, but I always think about her like, I wonder whatever happened to her. Like I wonder, like how did her life turn out? And that's the thing. And then when we were working remotely, I had some students who were struggling, and we were trying to reach out to the parents and encourage them. Let's try to get them some supports. A few parents were okay, but some of them were not. And I wonder about the ones that didn't because I'm like, your child is going to continue to struggle because they're missing some of the foundational skills. But those are the things that I wonder about. Like, how are you helping your child when you don't want them to get additional support? So yeah, so those are some of the things I think about. But I push my students. I'm like, you can do this. I know you can. You just have to put in a little more time. And I always have told my students, a lot of people who get A's are not really smart. They just work hard.
True.
They just work hard.
True.
Very true.
So you can do it.
I like that you kind of pull back the curtain and have the real conversations with students and are willing to, it sounds like, try and do a lot of different modalities to help get kids excited about learning. And I think as the Disrupt Education podcast, when we think about having guests like yourself, we really love these stories of people who are willing to do things differently. And I mean, you know, just the way you think is so beautiful. Like, oh, the little kids, well, they're just in smaller bodies.
That's it.
Talk to them. Or using your craftiness to, you know, I love this image of a UFO and all these scattered projects, but it really does allow you to connect with students in such a bunch of different ways, because you like, when you said that, I was like, oh, students are just like UFOs. They're unfinished, you know,
Yeah.
objects, projects, you know what I mean? But they're coming to be themselves. And so us as educators, we're really there to kind of be the bridge to help them, you know, show them what's possible. And yeah, a lot of A students, they're just very, very hard workers.
Yeah.
And some of them are very intelligent too.
Mhm.
But I mean, we can all probably speak to, I've had students, brilliant, absolutely brilliant students, could definitely get A's in all their classes should they choose, but they just chose to put their effort, time into other areas and doing the
Mhm.
homework or studying for the test. Like, you know, going the extra mile in the
Right.
traditional system wasn't for them. So what do you think is something that, you know, you do in your work, that may be considered, you know, a little more disruptive, or, you know, kind of pushing back on the system, but still you're in the system, right? So what are some things that come to mind in, you know, doing your part, as an educator to kind of, you know, help those in front of you, but also push back on what can be a challenging system at times?
Definitely that incorporation of the art. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm not being funny because, you know, I whatever way I can, I try to find a way to bring it in. I try to find a way to bring some hands-on things. Whereas I know we, you know, have this curriculum, great. But I have students who can't do what it's asking. So I have to figure out, okay, they gotta write this stuff. How can I get them to write this and they cannot write? I got to be creative. I have to be creative. Or I think about, okay, um, like maybe you're a really great drawer. And so I can write, but now you got to illustrate what I've said. So you have to explain to me, you know, when you finish, like what they're doing or whatever, you know, things of that nature. So I've been doing that. I've been working with, I have three students that I've been working with because one of them was a selective mute. So he just recently started speaking. Maybe the first year, like when we were out, he started speaking. And the other one, um, I don't know what happened. He went to the school, transferred, came back, but he's a non-reader as well. So two of them are non-readers, and then one is a really low level reader. So I've been working with them intensely on being able to read. And so what I started doing was I bought a game, like a what do you call it, Scrabble type game,
Mhm.
and we play that word game because you're gonna make some words. I don't care if they're two, three letters, you're gonna make some words. Maybe by the time, you know, the end of the year, you'll be able to make 4 or 5 letter words. But you're gonna make some words. You're going to make some words. And so I'm pushing them in ways that, you know, yeah, I could have it like look on the screen or whatever, but nope, we're going to use these tiles and make words. So I'm doing hands-on things. Look at those letters, make words. Now you got to think, can I make a word with this letter or that? You know, how can I make some words? Things that we didn't learn that. We didn't do that. We just, you know, and I go back to, I don't remember having like any of this when I was in school. Like you just, you know,
You just
so
read.
I'm,
They like push the book, keep pushing it at you, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing that probably for about a week or two. And progress is being made. Very little right now,
Mhm.
but it's being made.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking for, you know.
Mm.
So you could come in my room and see us playing games.
I
It may look like we playing games, but we're learning.
right. It's so hard to do because I'm an impatient person, and I'm sure, a lot of us are. But you're able to see the small wins, and that's something beautiful. Honestly, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's very difficult in a school day. As we're all educators on this podcast, right? Like that's difficult to do. Um, and so I wanted to ask, like, how did you learn how to see the small wins? How were you always patient? What happened?
No, no, no,
Because
no, no,
help me.
no, 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 no. First of all, so for the first maybe like 10 years, and it may have been a little bit before that, but I know for the first couple of years, I've been doing this 17 years, I was not like that.
Hmm.
I wasn't. And I tell people all the time, you got a different person. I wasn't like that. You didn't do it. Oh, well, you got to,
Mhm.
I was like that. And I don't know like what happened to me that I was like, why are you doing that? Like you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
why? And I didn't want to, like just why am I doing that? And so I started talking to him like, okay, Pete, why didn't you do the work?
Mhm.
Explain to me. Was it too hard? Was it, stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
before, oh no, I didn't care. I didn't care.
Mhm.
And so eventually, like I said, over time, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, what is it really, you know, is it going to make a difference?
Mhm.
And so I got to the point where I started having those conversations. Okay, come on, what do you need help with? Come during your lunch. Maybe Tuesday and Thursday after school, I'll meet with people, whatever. Because I'm like, I want you to have some level of success,
Mhm.
some level of success. So that's where the shift came. Like I said, it probably, may have been, I don't know, but I know like the shift came and I was just like, why am I doing this? Why am I, doing it? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I had that same softening a few years, and that's kind of what I heard in what you were saying is that I used to be pretty tough and gruff, and I'm sure my students who last had me would still say, I was strict and tough, but there is this heart change that I know many educators kind of have, like why they just question like why do I have to be so tough or emulate like maybe
Right.
what I've seen previously, and I felt so much better whenever I was softer with students or took the time rather than just like a harsh like not question or
Right.
kind of care. But it takes time to kind of find your teacher. I don't know, it's like your teacher heart. It's not even just like your
Mhm.
voice, but it's like what you bring to the classroom. And it just sounds like you've done a lot of that work in the past 7 years and more to really kind of grow into that, which is
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
students, I like they benefit so much from that, and for teachers and educators listening, if you haven't thought about that, I would encourage you to question like, that takes a lot of energy to be tough and gruff and kind of like, I don't know, black and white. There's so much gray area. I know that I enjoy teaching a whole lot more when I embraced that gray, and it was very transformative.
Yeah. And I always try to ask myself, like, what is my purpose?
Mhm.
Mm.
So if no, you didn't turn it in, you can't turn it in, like, why? Why? And so when that shift came, I told my students in the syllabus, late assignments are worth 50%. I was like, I'm not going to grade it because I don't know if you just copied from someone or if you actually did the work. And so, people say, I don't want no 50. And so the kid, it'd be always one or two kids be like, you want a 0 or a 50? Oh, you're right. Okay. But so I started doing that. Late assignments are 50% because it's not fair if I did it on time and then you turn it in 3 weeks later and get the same credit. That's just not fair. And I was like, and I'm not going to go back and grade it. So I said, if you turn it in and it's late, it's automatically 50%. I'm not going to even grade it. And I know some of them would just let me see your paper so I could copy it. But why was I, trying to be, tough on you about, no, you didn't. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I just stopped. And so once I let that go, I was like, look, I wish I had let this go a long time ago.
I feel that.
Yesterday.
They didn't teach us that in teacher school. I'll tell you what.
Right.
They taught the opposite, right? It was all
Right.
like, you better manage that class, man. You got to,
Yeah.
So I get that. So here's kind of the big question, especially when we ask around disrupting education. 17 years in, you've got amazing stories, K through 12. You're doing a side hustle that could be a main hustle. We'll leave that up in 23.
Uh-huh.
But like, let's talk about like the Olga Payne school, right? Like, what does that look like? What if you could design your own school or a system? What would you do?
We would not be sitting in anybody's building, weather permitting. Okay, that's the first thing. We're not in nobody's building. We're outside exploring. Um, Assessments, what are those? Okay, we're not doing traditional, no, we're not doing that. We're going to go out and explore, and then maybe you can write something that explains it. There'll be guidelines to it, but, do things like that, or maybe everybody have a camera and we do a photo, collage or something of different things to get children thinking. Um, One of the things that I realize when I bring in games for my students, they don't know how to play games that don't require you to be on a computer or, in front of the screen. So I want us to be able to go outside and explore. I want us to go places and look and say, did you see that butterfly? And did you see that, flower? Did you see this? I want us to be able to do those things. So we would not have a traditional, you know, classroom. When weather is not permitting, we're taking field trips at least 3 times out the week.
Mm.
Just to places where you can get an idea of possible careers, um, just to see how things work, you know, things of that nature. And I always think about like when everything was happening, the world has shut down and people was like, kids can't learn. Yeah, they can. I don't know if y'all remember a man named Fred Rogers. Okay. Now, if not, maybe can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? Okay. Or maybe, we watched The Electric Company. These were things that taught us. And it was all on TV. And they weren't talking back to us.
Mhm.
So when people kept saying kids cannot learn, I'm like, that's not true. But then I'll even go a little bit further. I know y'all remember when music videos came to be. You watched that video and you learned the latest dance moves. So, for people to say kids cannot learn, that's not true.
Mm.
They watch these videos, they listen to these songs, all of that, so they can learn. So we just have to find creative ways for kids to learn.
Mm.
Yes, we will learn how to read, we'll read and things of that nature. But I don't want it to be where you're in the classroom the bulk of the day. So maybe our time will be split. Part of the day in the classroom, part of the day outside.
Mhm.
Just so you can see that there is life outside of the world that you live in. When I was teaching high school, I was surprised at the number of kids who had never gone downtown Chicago.
Mhm.
Why? You can get on the bus and go down.
Mhm.
Had never been. So those are the types of things that I want students to see. I think for me, the best field trip I remember ever in life, and I'm sure we went other places. I was in the fourth grade, and my fourth grade teacher chartered a CTA bus for us. And we took a tour of Chicago
Oh,
on the
man.
CTA bus. When I tell you, I had never Like, just like I didn't know we went by Muhammad Ali house. We did all these things. And I'm thinking, who knew? I couldn't tell you any other field trip. I don't know where we went, but that one was in the 4th grade. So I want my students to have memorable experiences like that. You may not remember everything we did, but at least remember one good thing that we do in class, or, have that memory where you're like, this is great. That's what you're going to remember. You're not going to remember the Pythagorean theorem. You're not going to remember that. Am I using that in life? Probably not. But I just remember, taking that trip. I remember things like that. So that was really, really, impressionable.
Yeah.
We were on the CTA bus on a field trip. She had chartered it. A free trip. Well, we paid whatever the bus fare was,
right.
but at that time it was probably like 50 cents. Okay, where can you go for 50 cents? So yeah, so we I think as educators, we have to find ways to reach our students, push back a little bit, still, providing that. So that's what I would do if this was my school, if I had a system. We're not in the classroom all day. Nope.
Yeah.
We out of here. I like stuff like that. I want students to have good experiences. I want them to say, we didn't always be in the building. That's one of the things I encourage my students. It don't matter where we go on a field trip. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're out the building exploring.
As we're kind of wrapping up this podcast episode, which is delightful, and I love picturing this idea of school being everywhere and getting back to the roots of being out in the world, especially younger kids, that connection to like the ground and nature and all that is just so beautiful. And like, it needs to continue in middle school and high school, because I know I had a lot of high school students that I would be like, it's a beautiful day. Are you going to go outside and frolic? And they'd be like, no, I'm not going to do that. But they, you encourage that, because it's so transformative. And really, when you get out of your normal, those are the experiences that you remember, which just speaks to the field trip that you had. So there's so much packed into this episode with your experience and everything. But how can people connect with you beyond this podcast, and where can they find you, and just kind of hear more if they want to learn more about what you're doing and where you're going?
So I am on LinkedIn as Olga Payne, and I had to temporarily deactivate my Facebook account because I have to finish this dissertation. but I am on Facebook when I reactivate as Olga Payne, and my Instagram is still under my maiden name. It's Olga Kenyatta Little. So yeah, but I'm on those platforms. Instagram is still up, and LinkedIn is still up. But I had to get off of Facebook because I was spending too much time on Facebook. But once I am finished with my doctorate, preferably next year this time, I will be back on Facebook.
Thank you so much, Olga,
for having me.
Oh my gosh, this is enlightening. I love it. I just want to start a bus company right now and just do something crazy like that. But it really is effective. I'm sitting here thinking about all my out of the school experiences. I can remember every single one of them. So spot on. Allie, before we go, we got to ask, final thoughts.
UFOs, unfinished objects. I love it. It's my new favorite thing.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with it.
That's just a UFO.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it actually attributes to, each and every one of us as learners. We're all unfinished objects as we go through life.
Absolutely.
Spectacular. Thank you so much for Allie. I'm Peter Hostrasser. We'll catch you next time on the Disrupt Education Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrasser or Allie Privet.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.